The stories of the families that are impacted the most is really the big thing that we love to bring you, because this is the stories that Texas Children's Hospital, the people's lives that are being impacted on a daily basis. If you're thinking about making a donation to help these children, to help these people, to help these families, you can always call 800-234-6217 or text KRBE to 51555. Audrey, we have Reagan Smith, whose story began back in August of 2021. That's when you found out you were pregnant. Is that right, Reagan?
Yes, I found out I was pregnant with my Miracle Momo twins in August of 2021.
Now, why do you call them the Miracle Momo twins?
Well, they are one of the rarest twin pregnancies, and so there's conjoined twins, and then there's Momo twins, monochorionic, monoamnionic, and so they share the same sac with no dividing membrane, and so they're in the womb together, and then so it leads to like the miracle part is that their cords can get tangled because they're in there together. Yeah,
This is a scary moment.
it was very
when
scary.
you find this out. How does one diagnose this condition when you find out you're pregnant? The doctor says, oh,
Yes.
there's something going on here that's not a normal pregnancy.
So we got our ultrasound early, like at 5 weeks, and my regular doctor, who's amazing, was like, I think that this is gonna be something weird, but let's wait a week and come back and see. And I was like, okay. So we came back a week later, and then she was like, yeah, there's no membrane between the two on the ultrasound, and so you can see it. There's just like fetus 1, fetus 2 right next to each other, basically looking like they're laying on top of each other. We went to, that's when we got referred to Texas Children's Pavilion for Women's, MFM, maternal fetal medicine. And we had a 45-minute to an hour-long ultrasound where they looked at every facet of that early pregnancy.
What was going on in your mind when they were?
I was sweating.
This is gonna be kind of crazy and kind of scary in that moment because you're pregnant, twins,
Yes.
and now we're taking this along on ultrasound. Like,
Yeah, so when I first found out I was having twins, I was crying in excitement. I was like, yes, I wanted 3 kids. Like, 'cause I already have one at home. It's like, I want 3 kids. My husband was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay for this?
You guys, it seems like, because I'm going to take you back to a previous statement.
Yes.
You guys got your ultrasound early.
We did.
5 weeks. A lot of women don't even know they're pregnant at
Yep.
5 weeks, 6 weeks. You know, that's when you start going, hey, wait a minute.
Right.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Things are missing.
I feel like I'm going to vomit.
So it sounds to me, just reading between the lines, maybe you guys were trying. You
Yeah,
guys
we were.
trying to expand
Yep.
the family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you were getting aggressive. You
Yep.
pulled the goalie.
Yep.
Things were
Yep.
going.
It was looking good.
And then this complication arises.
Yes.
Now you're at Texas Children's. You're at their beautiful women's pavilion. That facility is gorgeous. We've both been there, Audrey and I.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's a state-of-the-art facility. We got it right
Amazing.
here in our backyard. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Reagan Smith, who had just found out in August of 2021 she's pregnant with twins, but there's a complication. And now you're at Texas Children's Hospital.
Yep.
You're doing this, 45-minute extra long
Yep.
ultrasound.
Yep.
And what's happening now?
Well, I'm stressed, obviously, because you just, you have all these hopes and dreams immediately, but then the second you find out there's a complication, it's like, oh my gosh, what is the future going to hold? What is this even going to look like? And so it was scary. I'm also a very positive person. My strengths finder, number 1, is positivity. And so I always try to find the bright side, but I was scared. Yeah, I was really
Yeah.
scared.
okay, so they're doing this ultrasound. What happens after that?
Yeah, so they say, oh, they're not conjoined, yay. And then they break the news that we have the mono twins. We go through all of the risks early because there's a lot. The cord entanglement is huge. If one, so like when you have a twin pregnancy, and again, I'm not a doctor, but this is all the stuff that I've learned. When you have a twin pregnancy and something happens in utero to one of the twins, in a usual normal twin pregnancy, the other baby would be okay for the most part.
Yeah.
But in, let's say, the pregnancy like ours, a mono twin, if twin A's blood supply got cut off because the cord was too tight, the likelihood of twin B passing away or having,
Complications.
big time complications would have been like, I think 60%, 40 to 60%, something like that. And so you just, like, from the beginning, it was like, we're going to be hopeful, but red flags.
So kitchen table time.
Yeah.
You and your husband, you just got this news from the doctors at Texas Children's, and it sounds like you've got some pretty big decisions to make.
Yep.
And I want to take you back to that moment. You're sitting there at the dinner table and you're talking about this situation, and you're faced with the very real possibility that this pregnancy's not going like you thought it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel, and what were those conversations like with your husband?
Well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. We actually found out that Hallie had other complications as well. And so that's when the actual serious conversations happen. Like, what happens if we lose a twin? What are we going to do to save the pregnancy? And I think the hardest conversation was, and I can go into that, why we had to have this conversation, but you have twin A and twin B. The likelihood of twin A making it was very low anyways. And so do we take the pregnancy early to save one twin? Do we not take the pregnancy so we can hope that the other twin can grow more? Like, it was something that I don't even think I'm still adult enough to make those decisions.
As a parent, I feel like that must tear you up.
Oh,
it's like
it was
you're
terrible.
choosing between your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty terrible.
You're forced at an early stage in this pregnancy to think about these major choices, to choose between, neither one of them surviving or, one of them not.
Right.
That's tough.
It was really tough.
And you also, in that time, had formed a bond with these children growing in your womb.
Yeah.
And you had given them names.
Yep. Yeah, they got names really early.
So you named your daughters, Hannah and Hallie.
Yep.
And you gave them names well before most of us even start to think about our children's names.
Yep.
Tell us how this story progresses from here.
So, so we found out we were pregnant with the Momo twins. We had that ultrasound confirming, and then we went into another ultrasound at 15 weeks. And here we found out this was so scary because the ultrasound tech was doing the ultrasound, and she goes, okay, I need to take a break. And she leaves. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on. She was like, yeah, there's just a little growth on baby B. And I was like, okay. So, in comes the doctor. And at that point, when the doctor comes in, you're like, the doctor wants to talk to me. Yeah. This is going to be great. Which this doctor was phenomenal. Thank God we had him because he showed so much care and empathy in how he spoke to us, and just made our baby still feel celebrated, even though she was going to have some differences. So at that time, we found out that she had something called OEIS complex, which means she would have an omphalocele, and she would have exstrophy. So her organs were outside of her body, which is, you think is uncommon, but then you go into the NICU and you see all these babies, and there are babies with those things there. And so I had never heard of it. Yeah. But, in my research, these are things. These are real things that people deal with every day. And so anyways, so we found out that she was going to have this, and that's when those really hard conversations happened. She was also really small, Hallie. She was not growing as quickly as sister. And so we had a lot of ultrasounds. We had lots of, what are those things called? Do you remember when you, echocardiograms, fetal echocardiograms. I had a fetal MRI. There's just so many things that you can do. I was under the care of the fetal intervention team, which is like this super skilled team of doctors at the Pavilion for Women. They did all of these tests, and they told me that if she didn't make it to 32 weeks, that it was going to be really hard for her to survive. So then you have that conversation. But when you have Momo twins, you get put in the hospital around 24 to 25 weeks for frequent monitoring, because at any point, those babies could get their cords tangled and you could have an emergency. So that was really hard because they had to make to 32 weeks, but I was going to go into the hospital at 25 weeks. So
you're sitting, so let's fast forward a little
bit.
You go to the hospital.
Yep.
And are you still sitting in the hospital for at 25 weeks? Are you in there by this time?
Yeah, so it was actually my birthday. I went in for just an ultrasound and they're like, you're getting admitted today. So I started crying. I was like, it's my birthday. And so we went, I got admitted. And with the plan of staying for 7 weeks, my friends loaded me up with all these things to occupy a hospital room for 7 weeks, and they came 5 days later. So we didn't make it. Yeah.
When you say that they came 5 days later, was this a medical intervention that caused the babies to be born?
Yeah, well, it was an emergency C-section because I was sitting in an ultrasound, or I had an ultrasound the day before, and baby's heart rate dropped. And so they're like, oh, we have to deliver, but then it came up. I was sitting in a monitoring session where I had to do monitoring every 6 hours, where they came in and made me sit on the monitor for an hour to just get heart rate data. And so I was doing my heart rate data, and Hallie's heart rate tanked, and the nurse runs in and she's like, turn over. So I turned over, and then within 30 minutes, we had done an emergency C-section and babies were out.
Let's talk about Hallie.
Yeah.
Now, Hallie is a part of this whole equation.
Yes.
And what you consider also part of this miracle situation.
She's absolutely a miracle.
But one of the things that we haven't discussed is the fact that Hallie didn't make it through this ordeal. Did you have a chance to hold Hallie
Yes,
as well?
yes. I held Hallie after 47 days. And so watching her in the, I call it a spaceship. I don't know if you've ever seen a NICU thing.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a spaceship. She laid in there for 47 days. And then I'll never forget, it took 5 nurses and staff to get her up so I could hold her safely. So it was...
Now, was that because she had all these tubes and things like
Yeah,
that
so
in her?
yeah, she was on a ventilator, and because of her how her body was structured, you had to hold her a certain way so you wouldn't hurt her.
This is an infant with organs on the outside of her
Yes.
body, as you've described to us a few moments ago. So there's sensitive, exposed parts of her body. Her skin and bones are not covering and protecting her, and plus she's extremely premature.
Yep.
So germs and other
everything.
things could be
Oh, it was so
very
scary.
dangerous.
Yeah, it was so scary. I asked a million times. I made the nurse stand right behind me, Rachel, our primary nurse, a saint. She stood right behind me to make sure everything was good because I was so scared. But it was also really cool, and this is why holding is so important, and this is why Texas Children's makes it their mission to get their moms to hold babies, is because Hallie in her little spaceship was very temperamental. You came close to Hallie, her heart rate went up, her oxygen went down, she would just get mad. So I was so scared that holding her, she would tank. Oh my gosh, her stats were perfect the whole hour I held her. And that was God to me because she didn't phase her. She was happy. It was really special.
How were you feeling? I mean, you've just kind of described it, but how were you feeling as a mother to hold this child, even through these medical imperfections and the things that you were dealing with, looking down into her eyes and seeing this thing that you helped create and this life that you gave?
Yeah, I was feeling lucky she was mine because while she had all kinds of things going on, she was perfect. And she was a gift. And I knew in that moment that she would inspire so many because she's just a fighter. And I was just so proud.
I know that, a lot of people may be listening to this and they say, that premature birth, it's the story is just absolutely mind-blowing because when you think of premature birth, you think of a story that I can relate to with my wife and our stepdaughter. She was born 6 weeks premature.
Yeah.
Okay, piece of cake.
Yeah.
6 weeks premature is not 25 weeks premature with twins who are in the same sack who could get tangled up.
Yeah.
One of them born with organs outside the body, and just a mind-blowing story, such a touching and emotional story.
Thank you.
What you've been through, and the fact that you were able to get through it with the professional and amazing team at Texas Children's Hospital. If that doesn't cause you to want to make a donation to the incredible work these people are doing, and you can do it right now, 800-234-6217, or simply text KRBE to 51555. We've been talking to Reagan Smith about her daughters, Hannah and Hallie, twins that were born prematurely, over 6 months premature. What an incredible story. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank y'all for having me.